We're going to talk about the ethos of the digital oil wells, really looking at why digital oil wells are what Kevin and I both think are the best businesses on the planet at this point in time. And to do so, we'll probably dig into our stories a little bit. So first, Kevin, why don't you share your story a little bit through starting your businesses online, the different things that you've done, and how you came on this digital oil well idea?
Yeah. So, well, it's tricky because I've been doing this for quite a while. So I started my first internet business in 1997, and so I don't necessarily think I have to go all the way back to there, because people were mailing me checks at that point. So I don't know that some of it is there are certain relevant things, but I think for this conversation, I can sort of maybe just hit the high points and then get to the point of the realization that I had. So for several years, I did a lot of different things, testing this new thing that we had called the internet at the time. And I was doing all sorts of different things, from service type stuff where I was installing intranets and backends for businesses, to lead generation, to e-commerce. I even actually tried to build YouTube back in 1998, which was a massive failure, but story for another time. But the big idea came to me. So in the early 2000s, like 2003 and 4, I had gotten into e-commerce and was selling a bunch of different things, had lots of different sites that I built. A couple of them were pretty successful. One was about airsoft guns, which were a big thing back then. And I actually had the #1 airsoft gun on website, e-commerce site online at that point. And that led me into a partnership with some guys to do I guess it would be an agency. We were running paid traffic and doing SEO for big e-commerce brands. And I mean, companies like Swiss Army, Patagonia, people like that. We were doing, it's a lot. Sometimes it was contract work. Sometimes it was retainer work that was ongoing, different things. But what I figured out, I did that for about a year and a half, and I hated it. I mean, these are as good clients as anyone could ever hope to have, right? I mean, you definitely, these are like the feather in your cap type clients that people would dream of having. But what I found myself doing was being on the phone all the time. And, I was on sales calls, I was on delivery calls, I was doing all this sort of stuff. And after about a year and a half of it, I finally just decided I'd had enough, and I quit. I gave my partners my part of the business. And so luckily I had some money in the bank and had some time to sort of think about what I really wanted to build. Up until then, I had sort of just, a curiosity would lead me down a rabbit hole, which would lead me to building an e-commerce brand, and I was good at it, and I was good at traffic. I was figuring, I've got sort of this ability to go deep down a rabbit hole very quickly and figure out sort of the little nuanced things that make something work. And so I had learned how to do Google AdWords really well, and had already spent a bunch of money. My first 7-figure year online was in 2003. And I've done 7 figures or better every year since then. But what I came to, and this was in 2006, was the realization that I could take this thing that was like the greatest opportunity of my lifetime and turn it into just a traffic source for a crappy job. I could jobify the internet. And I realized I didn't want to do that, like the freedom and the creativity that you're afforded with this new medium that we had, it just clicked to me that I was only using like 1% of the available world that was there for me. And so I sort of took about a 6-month sabbatical and just started thinking and trying to think about, okay, what's the pros and cons of this business model and this one and this one and this one. And then one day I was in the bookstore, and I happened to walk past a section of the bookstore and saw some books there, and it gave me an idea for a product to sell. And it was a digital product, but it wasn't tied to like me being the face of it, which I didn't really want to do. I didn't want a guru type business. It just spurred this, new way of thinking about, okay, I can do this and build this and have me not be on the hook to be the brand, but also not have to be like a physical products business, which was difficult because the cost of goods sold was, I was what's called an authorized seller. I don't know if they still do it that way, but back then I was an authorized seller, so I only made 35% of the sale price of, say, an airsoft gun. So if it was $100, I only had $35 to play with, which made pay-per-click very difficult. So long story short, not possible at this point, I guess. I started playing around with this. Took me several months to crack it, but I got it cracked. And I built a business that was doing 6 figures in sales a month and took about an hour a day of my time to manage. And then eventually got it down to where it was taking, about an hour a week. And so for 8 years, I had a 7-figure a year business that, it didn't make me rich, but I put 30 to 40 grand a month profit into my bank account, net after everything. And got to live my life and didn't have to deal with any of the other stuff, didn't have client calls or sales calls or any of that junk.
Yep.
So,
and I guess one of the big ideas, or if I was to try to themify this, it's like, okay, so we're going to take time to build businesses online. Okay. That's just, obviously that's what we're doing. I can create just about anything, right? Like I literally can go build anything I wanted. You even thought about doing like a YouTube type alternative, big ideas, small ideas, which we just have a plethora of ideas. But if we're going to put in the time and the energy to build something, why not build something that has like maximum amounts of leverage and minimum amounts of like inputs, like ongoing inputs required and or ongoing inputs from you required, right? Like being the figurehead or being the person on the brand. And so if you're going to take all the time, it's front loaded to build any type of business online, might as well have really good margins, which is kind of why you went digital on this one, and something where you don't necessarily need to be hitting the feeder bar for 17 hours a day, hitting the phones for 17 hours a day. And yet you could still realize similar, better, worse, moderate in between gains. But just, life altering types of income money. Is that kind of the gist of it?
yeah. And at the time, I didn't really have all of this codified in my head, right? I didn't have it all figured out, but what I did know was what I didn't want. That I was pretty clear. And so when I started my internet business, I in 97, I had just quit Bear Stearns. And that job, I was making good money, like $250K a year. And for a 25-year-old, that's
in
pretty
the
good.
90s when 250K meant something.
That's right. And so the interesting part in my revelation about it, like I quit a job where I was on the phone all the time. And then, here I was 8 years later, I created a job where I was on the phone all the time. And I hated being on the phone when I was at Bear Stearns. That was, part of the hassle of it, right? And so I think we sort of can easily fall into these patterns that are very bad, especially when the money might be it might be a shorter path to the money. But the thing that I came to realize is that there's a big difference between like linear earnings and something that is more of exponential or logarithmic, or like something that you can put in a smaller amount of work on the grand scheme. It might be a lot at first compared to what you're making, but over time it becomes a very little amount, and then it continues to make sales for you years and years down the road,
right,
without you having to continue to put in singular life units to it, like one life unit per X amount of dollars. That I figured out that sucks.
Right. And it's so going from trading dollars for hours to literally creating and selling / marketing assets, right? Building assets essentially, because an asset would have a sales and a marketing component, because that asset can be grown by other people. It can theoretically, in a digitally deliverable thing, it could scale 1,000 sales a day, 10,000 sales a day. The technology doesn't really change that much with what we're working at. So when my wife and I really started to gain traction in our first business, so we started that blog together in 2009, really started to gain traction with the organic marketing, the search engine optimization stuff a few years later. And I was posting on social media just screenshots of our analytics, our month over month growth, the orange line and the blue line. And people were like, hey, can you show me how to do this? And at the time, I hadn't really cracked the direct response marketing code with our brand, with what my wife and I were building. So all I kind of had were vanity metrics. And I didn't really understand how to really craft offers, all the digital oil well stuff that everyone's learning in this course. I didn't have those things dialed. And I got all this outreach. Hey, Miles, can you help me? I got a coffee business. I'd love to get more traffic to my website, or I need a WordPress website. And I was broke. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I spent about 3 years kind of growing a pseudo WordPress / local marketing agency. And I hated it, like passionately. It was painful. Scope creep, clients decide that, oh yeah, by the way, I want it this way at the 11th hour. And they expect for no additional change in fees to totally rework the project. And I realized ultimately that I had replaced a boss from a corporation with a boss from a client. And I was absolutely
1,000 bosses, right?
Exactly, 100%. And I would say even less intelligent bosses, because they didn't understand my realm. Like at least my boss in the corporation kind of understood what I was doing, but these folks, they really didn't understand the complexities, and it was challenging. So I did keep those plates spinning because it covered my lifestyle and it helped me pay off my student loans, which I had $50,000 in student loan debt. But while doing that, I discovered what I like to call the mailbox money approach, the multiple streams of income approach, where my wife and I were then able to create. And we can use all kinds of different language patterns, and through all these videos, we will reference them differently, right? Is it just a funnel? Is it one front end funnel that has a series? Well, yeah, it kind of is. Is that a standalone asset? Yes. Is it a totally separate brand? Sometimes, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it just lives within the same brand. And ultimately, my wife and I started really focusing on growing an email list, sending offers to that email list, and building little front-end funnels that allowed us to grow the email list profitably. And when we put those things together in my wife's business, bingo, everything has just absolutely rocketed from there. And now we have physical products, we've got membership recurring monthly fees. And so once we branched out from there, and I think what I did is I drank the Kool-Aid of direct response marketing and this kind of leveraged business that allowed me to make 1,000 sales from a couple of emails. So we just tested a new offer recently. We sent one email out and it did about $6,500 in 24 hours. And that was a test, right? Like, I wonder if this is going to work. It seems like our people would like that. We sent it out, bingo, an extra $6,000 while we were out goofing off. And this leveraged income is where we're guiding you to, right? This is the goal, is to get everyone there. So you've mentioned your digital business that you created, and help me with the timeline, because you've got your physical business, the golf, the Hustler Secret. Was that before the Hustler Secret, or what is the organization of those two on the timeline?
Yeah, so I had some of those businesses first. Again, so Hustler's Secret was already going and
Okay.
was doing fine and was selling. I hadn't really automated it at that point, and so
You were
any
literally filling the cans and you were literally mixing in the green color. You were doing all of the physical work,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is
Here's the actual thing, and there's the stuff. So yeah, so how it was working was I had um, an assistant named Amp, and she was actually the one filling the cans, and she ended up quitting actually about a year later because she's like, my hands will never be dry again, they're too moisturized. She's like, I can't fill any more cans. We were selling 10 20 cans a day, and that's a lot of Vaseline. So
and there's deep dive videos on these products. Like we're gonna go into this more, but it's just from that broader level of the evolution, right? So trading dollars for hours, doing client work, which is essentially like a job. It's a fast way out of the traditional job, but it's just literally replacing. It's the same type of income, right? It's the same actual earned income. Then you went into the physical products, and the physical products they were selling, it worked. It was a unique thing, but it required all of this fulfillment, the creation, and there's ways to automate that stuff that we obviously, and we will get into the weeds on that because I have some physical products that we sell very, very regularly. They're 100% fulfilled by other companies, but then really shifting into the digital world to that, it's the most freeing business model there is. And I want to kind of ask you a leading question, and hopefully, if not, I'll grab the reins and I will point us in the direction.
yeah.
But did the experiences build on each other? Was the fact that you did break out on your own to do the non-scalable work in the beginning to then test the e-commerce and the other worlds of this? Did all of what you learned and what you did lead you to that kind of breakthrough of the most free type of income?
Of course, yeah. So the big idea was, like, when I quit Bear Stearns, I was so we were taking a bunch of companies public, right? And so like big companies like Netscape, which people watching this might not even know who that was, but they were a big deal at the time. They were the first browser, all the way to some like really dumb company ideas. And I met some of these guys and I'm like, what am I doing here on the phone cold calling old dudes in Missouri when, I went to Georgia Tech, I'm a nerd at heart. The like my industrial revolution is happening here and I'm missing out on it being stuck in this office. So I didn't have a plan of like what I was going to do. When I started, I just knew that I had to jump in. I knew I had to, like, this was happening and I was going to miss it if I didn't do it. And so there was a period of discovery. There still is, right? But especially back then, there was a period of discovery, like, oh, what about this? What about this? And to your point about direct response, I started studying all the great direct response copywriters, the direct mail guys, all the, I was building, I had sales skills from being on the phone for 10 hours a day, but I didn't have marketing skills, right? And so I started learning marketing skills. And I also started testing business models and trying things, and fell into some by accident, like lead generation. My wife was a lawyer and had her own law firm. And so I was trying to get leads for her law firm, which they would never call. And so, I just discovered a lot of different things. And some of the things were better than others. Like, the e-commerce stuff was great, but with higher ticket selling things, the customers had lots of questions, and there were, and this was early on before a lot of the outsourcing stuff was available that's available today, as far as like hiring people 24/7 to man the chat and questions, email, and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of it just sort of fell to us. But to your question, yes, like I never would have learned AdWords if it weren't for some of these other businesses. I never would have learned SEO. I never would have like we were doing SEO before because there was no pay-per-click, right? So you had to try to do it, and we didn't call it SEO. We just were trying to get visitors, So I was doing everything. I was a spammer. Like the best traffic source for a long time was spam. I mean, like sending bulk unsolicited emails. So you just learn all these things as you go, and technology makes it easier, is what would happen. Like we were working so hard, doing all this stuff like keyword stuffing and all this stuff to try to get our stuff to come up to the top at like, Hotbot and all these old Alta Vista and all these old search engines. And then all of a sudden we found a buddy told me about it called Go-To, where you could pay to be at the top. And that was like, I pay a nickel to be at the top. Yes, please. I'd rather do that than work for 3 weeks to do it. So all the skills stacked for sure. And I also learned the things I didn't like during that period of time. Like, okay, well, I don't really like this. I do like this, or I want more of this, or whatever, And so it was a fun time in a lot of ways to be doing it, because there were like terms of service for most of these companies weren't even hardly written, so you could try everything,
Right. And it still is. I think we're still in that age. Like I do believe the internet's still in its infancy, and although
Agreed.
attention shifts around at different places, the big idea that I'm really wanting to kind of like repeat for the viewer is that this is a process. It's a process that often starts with unscalable things. It's a process that forces us to build new skills through testing all kinds of different ideas. And then we get lots and lots of feedback. And some of that feedback is going to be like, holy shit, I made a sale, right? Like that's some of the feedback. And then some of the other feedback is like, if I have to do another phone call like this, I'm done. Like, in fact, I'm just done. Like, so some of the feedback is kind of like personal, emotional. What am I willing to do? And then the other feedback is, in that direct response sense, did they click on my ad? Did they click on my buy button? Did they complete my checkout page? Can I actually get this thing fulfilled? Do I actually want to create skincare or skin cream or physical products, or do I want to do digital products? So it's a process, and there's points on the path, even working in fun, even in this, like in the world that it's dialed, right? The digital products world with some great ads running through a great proven funnel. There's still stuff in it that's a pain in the ass that we have to get involved in. You lose a teammate. Oh man, they did all kinds of stuff. And I got to go hire. Like it's never perfect. The idea of true like passive income, you do nothing forever. You're swinging in a hammock for, just drinking Mai Tais. That's kind of a lie, but we can get you 80-90% of the way there. We can get you to build out systems and products, but it's going to take a lot of testing for you to see what are you good at, for you to take time to build the skills. What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? And it's out of that process. It's a process that will get you to where you want to be. And as Kevin just said, he really enjoyed the process. It was the Wild West. And I'm gonna tell you right now, goddamn, YouTube ads are the wild freaking West. Like Facebook ads, still great right now, but like it's not the Wild West that it was in 2016. But YouTube ads is 100% the Wild West. TikTok ads, Snapchat ads are like there's all these ad products out there. There's all these ways out there to get your message in front of your best audience, super quick, super easy, and it's a game. It's a puzzle. Do these people want this thing? If I communicate it like this, if I present it this way, are they going to take action on this thing? And once you find out one of these little systems that starts to generate sales, and it takes very little amount of your time, and that thing's spitting out a few sales a day, a dozen sales a day, whatever it is, we go build more of them. And so like Kevin and I are addicted to creating these things. I have in the works right now a software product. I'm not a coder by any stretch of the imagination. Physical products, I'm working on a free plus shipping offer just because I think it would be fun to put it together. It's a total pain in the ass to deal with all of the logistics around this, but I got a hunch that if this thing clicks off, it's going to absolutely explode. And this is in addition to the hundreds of digital things that I'm selling in several different markets. So with that idea, Kevin, what are like the core, if you were to sum up as digital wildcatters, and for those who don't know what a wildcatter is, it's someone who goes around to the oil fields and works on the oil fields. So as someone working in the digital oil wells world, what do you think the core kind of like what are the core mindset shifts? What are the core things they're going to need to keep in mind to sustain momentum through kind of the process?
So I would say the first thing to think about is, or that I always think about, is that I think about, like, I want to, if I'm going to build this thing, can I build it in a way to where my life, so I think of things in life units. Okay. So this is maybe useful to think about. So, the thing that you've only got a finite amount of is life units, right? And you have to divvy those up however you will. Like, some people want to watch college football for 12 hours on Saturdays, and I don't judge them for that, but I don't want to use my life units that way, right? I would, I've got too much other stuff that I'm trying to do than to do that. Some people use their life units to sit in a cubicle, and nobody really wants to do that, but they need money to pay the rent or the bills or whatever. So they have to trade their life units for this amount of money that someone's willing to pay them to do it. So what I found, like I said a few minutes ago, is that I had taken one job that, traded my life units for a certain amount of money. And through the course of 8 years, had found myself back into a very similar situation. And it made me think, okay, I want to build something that can go from 1-to-1 life units to 1-to-infinite life units. Like, and the truth is that's the way, like, this thing right here, I think it was 2005 when I wrote the sales letter for this and made the first sales. And it sells every month to this day. Almost every day it sells. And I've never changed the sales letter. I haven't, I like, it's the same. And so those life units were spent 16 years ago, and now it will make me $50 when somebody buys it. And that is the first thing I would say from my, like, if you're going to do commandments of a digital oil well, it's like 1-to-infinite is the first thing, or at least approaching infinite, right? Mm-hmm. The name of my company that all my businesses are in is Infinite ROI, infinite return on investment of time, investment of energy, of focus, of money, any of those things. And that's the idea here. The first idea, I think, is that if you're thinking of your life units, even if you have to invest 50 of them or 100 or 200 to get it started, if it runs for 10 years, that starts to look like nothing, right? Yep. And that's the first big idea.
I agree. Getting leverage on yourself, right? Like, out of that trading dollar for hours and getting into something that's scalable is a kind of a buzzword, if you will, in the industry of it's front loaded. There's a lot of testing. There's the skills, there's learning the copywriting, and ultimately it's testing. Does the marketplace value this thing? Do they want it? Like, it's not about asking me or Kevin, like, hey, what do you think about this idea? I'm like, I don't know. What does the market think about that idea? So one thing I would like to add and to kind of like layer on here in addition is the idea of becoming a merchant, right? Like, people buy things all day, every day. The economy that is flowing around each and every one of us is, I mean, it's trillions of dollars are just flowing back and forth and exchanging hands at all times. And becoming the kind of person that not just is at that service level, right? Like, oh, I'll give you hours to do this thing that you don't want to do, right? Not just trading that income type, but the leveraged model of, I'm going to offer this thing, and it can be B2B, and even in a B2B scenario, it's still another human on the other side. If you're selling to a corporation, there's actually one person there who's going to type in the credit card or who's actually going to pay for the item. So we're always selling to another person. And it's thinking in this world and thinking through the terms of like, man, what can I create? What can I offer to other people that they're going to value enough to want to purchase? And or what are they already buying that I can just sell them? And we're going to talk more about this at many levels, right? The idea of selling status, the idea of selling, usefulness, utility value, and some blend in between the two there, but really just looking at the world in terms of being a merchant. And for some people, it often starts as, can I just go buy 7 or 8 or 9 of these things? Can I sell these things? Can I sell them on Etsy? Can I sell them on eBay? Can I just sell something? Can I act as a middle person? And I think one of the oldest ways to build wealth in our world, and I'm talking about tens of thousands of years, is buying things and selling things, right? And people are so much more willing to pay money for physical things. Like we just understand the exchange. Like, oh, hairbrush, $9, that's a good value. I need a hairbrush. I actually don't need a hairbrush, but like that's what I'm saying. Like it becomes an easy value. And sometimes getting into the realm of the expert kind of courses that a lot of us are very familiar with seeing, it can become more difficult to sell these abstractions of ideas. It requires a lot more skills, maybe a lot more trust, but it's a gigantic scale. And all of these are potentially leverageable in a major way with some of the fulfillment companies out there and the technologies that we have available to us today. But it's looking around the world as a merchant, which means, and I guarantee you do this too, I'm always paying attention to what people are selling. So I'll go to a farmer's market. I love getting groceries and vegetables and fruits from the farmer's market. And I am paying attention. And there's this dude who makes these super high-end mushrooms. And I buy shiitake mushrooms from him for like $17 a pound. And they grow out of these really awkward bags. He converted his basement into a mushroom thing. And I love it. I love finding these kinds of people. There was a kid at one, he made these magnet things you slid on your mattress and it helped you sleep better because you got the magnetic force of the earth. I bought 2 of them, $190 each. I'm in because he was hustling, right? And I'm observing what are the offers, what are people making? And I just want to make this point really clear to people again. Like, I'm not saying that the end goal is to set up a booth at your local farmer's market. For some of you, it may be, but golly goodness, is that a great place to go test your ideas? Sometimes we have to get that deep into the mud of hand-to-hand interacting with people. Are you interested in buying this thing? Yes or no? Why not? Those are the things that we can learn sometimes that will turn into the sales letter, that will turn into the funnel, that becomes hyper scalable. Not saying it's required, but just looking through the world in terms of offers and products and thinking like a merchant and observing what's going on and what's selling and why certain things are selling when they're selling. It shifts your brain into really like CEO, like being a CEO of your own business, of your own brand. And something happens. The world opens up and you just see opportunity everywhere. And I know you feel this way and I feel this way as I look around. Like I have to constantly restrain myself from taking on new projects because there are a million ideas floating around absolutely everywhere. And it's the execution that makes it work. Because I know on those $1 million ideas, I'm like, ooh, I could go there, but it's front loaded. It's going to take a lot of testing. I don't know the market. I'm going to have to write new sales letter. I have to figure out, there's all these things. Am I willing to do this? Back to the lifestyle, which is something you talked about, right? For me right now with my lifestyle, the amount of income I'm earning, how much time is costing, I love the lifestyle I've created. And that's where we're here to help you guys get there. Sometimes it's front loaded. Sometimes it takes more work up front. It's more effort. It's kind of feels like a pain in the ass. It's a challenge because we're doing a lot of testing to see if they want. But when it unlocks, that's the infinite side of infinite ROI. And we want to get you there. And everybody wants to be there. Everybody's like, I want that. It's like, cool, we're going to lay the path out for you. And the path is going to be manual. The path is going to be, can you go get a few of them and sell them? Do you really quickly want to share a bit about Trey Llewellyn and how, because he just blew up some products in the gun space, some funnels in the, I call them the gun nut world. Do you want to share a little bit about like the early start and how he kind of like tested those ideas in the early days?
Yeah. So, well, before I get to that, one of the things I'll mention about what you were saying is I think you become a good noticer. That's the way I describe it. Like it's easy to go through your life and not ever really pay attention to what's happening around you, especially if you're not sort of in the market for a thing. And I talk to my kids we do a thing called unschooling with our kids, and I talk to them about not just being a consumer of things, but thinking like a producer, like not just a consumer of content, but think like, okay, that guy who did that video, he planned it, he thought it through. Like there's a lot that goes into all the things that it's so easy to just become like a vegetable and just like have things coming in. And I think when you're like that, you're not, it sort of dulls your noticing abilities. Whereas I think when you are sort of on the other side of it and you're always sort of looking from behind the curtain, like you said, there's opportunity. Like for someone to be in the United States, I mean, I know there's places in the world where there's less opportunity, but to be in a first world country like this with the freedoms that we have, I mean, it's incredible. I can't imagine that there was ever a better time to be alive than right now. So like you're saying about the farmers market and some of those things. I mean, it's incredible that people are making fortunes selling soap. I mean, like just or mushrooms or weird Chinese baby names. I mean, like there's a million of these ways that people are making like more money than a brain surgeon makes. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Way better lifestyle and a higher quality of life, and probably way higher up on the happiness index compared to a brain surgeon, right? If you look at the data on doctors and lawyers, it ain't pretty, to say the least.
Well, and you don't have to give up 7 to 10 years of your life to be worthy to practice your career either. It's like you can have a good idea there. So there's I won't mention names, but there's somebody that I know of who started it's a course that they're selling, and they've gone from zero to millions of dollars in sales per month in less than a year. Think about that. Like you can go from being just a regular dude to a millionaire, a multi-millionaire in 1 year's time these days. Now, I'm not saying that to blow smoke and be like Grant Cardone and all these BSers that, I'm naming names. I know that probably makes Miles cringe, but there's a bunch of guys that I feel like are con artists out in the world. And that's the farthest thing from what I believe in.
Yeah.
But there is the reason that con artists have the ability to take people's money is because there's usually a lot of truth in what they're saying, but they just don't have the goods to deliver the final thing of it. But like there's incredible opportunity today, and being a good noticer is one of the things that happens when your mindset shifts to that being a merchant type idea that you're talking about. Because like to make 20 grand a month, to make, I don't know exactly what a brain surgeon makes, 250K a year, that's a high level career. That's a career that you paid 6 figures in college loans to get, right? So 20K a month. I could sit down at a piece of paper and within an hour or two have 50 different ways that you could be making 20 grand a month within 3 months.
Yep.
I mean, not 7 years, not 10 years, not $200,000 of Harvard education or whatever, but just with some elbow grease and the ability and willingness to learn and test and try things and take measured risk and go for it. There's never been a time like this. And so that's the cool part.
Totally. And I want to just throw in there. So you have the copywriting skills and you know how to craft an offer. And I think that's why you look at that list and you're like, I could do any one of those in a few months. For the folks listening who are just here with us joining, kind of embarking on this journey, their journey is probably gonna be a little longer because you got to build those copy skills. You got to build the skill of being able to craft an offer that an audience is willing to pull out their credit card and buy. And that might be front loaded, but once you unlock that, it's a skill. And that skill is with you for the rest of your life. And that's where you come from, this place of confidence. And I feel it too. I'm not like, I literally have to limit the number of things I go into because I just overwhelm I'm working 70, 80 hours a week and I'm semi-retired. Like, what am I doing here? It's back to the lifestyle idea. But once those skills are unlocked, and I kind of put it all under that direct response marketing world, crafting an offer, getting that offer in front of people in a way that draws them in, and tapping into a couple of these psychological things like the status goal type thing. The world opens up from there. If we could, so
let me say one thing about like the copywriting skills and things. So I was alluding to con guys and stuff like that a minute ago. I think that's one of the places where the con happens, just to be real with you, is they make it sound like you don't have to do the work to attain skills. So to make the sale, to get you to take your $1,000 and make it their $1,000, they make more sales if they take away the actual hard part, which is the skill development. Like if there's any piece of this that is the thing that will give you security, it's not having a digital oil well. It's having the skill that it takes to make a digital oil well. And that is and then being able to stack 2 or 3 or 4 skills on top of each other. Like if you can write copy and you can run traffic and you can probably, understand a conversion path or funnel or whatever they call it. Like you don't have to be great at this or you don't have to be like world-class at any one of these 3 to have a good business, but you've got to be probably, if you have to do any, like writing great copy and understanding the psychology behind a sale is probably the most important. And then being able to run some simple campaigns is probably next. And then third is just have a simple way to move them through the process. So if you can do the work to learn a few skills like that, then you have security, right? I mean, like say Facebook ads go away forever, then okay, you can just move to YouTube. Say YouTube's go away forever, okay, you can start mailing people. I mean, like you have the thing, the intangible thing that nobody can take away from you, and that is, I would say, if there's anything that is probably the most valuable nugget, it is having the skills to create these things. And then that is where you're able to build ultimate freedom.
100% agree. And that's really what you're getting as you go through this is the understanding, the skills, and I think the mental models, right? Through these conversations with Kevin and I, you're going to really understand how we see the world, because we, successful internet marketers and internet entrepreneurs who do 7 figures per year each, and have for a time, you've been doing that for significantly longer than I have. Like, we have a mental model. We have a way that we look at the world. We have a way that we look at platforms. We have a way that we look at things that allows us to see this opportunity that's right there. It's in front of everybody. It's in front of 7.5 billion people. And there's a real small handful of people. And there's a way of looking at it and thinking about it, and then ultimately testing upon our assumptions. When we kind of get to the point of like, man, that would be fun. That would work. Like, I'm going to try this. Like this, it seems like a really cool offer. Boom, when that locks in, and that's what's going to happen through following through on this course. And I kind of threw the tray idea out there. I'm going to give like a 60-second on top of that, and I'd like you to fill in, if you wouldn't mind, anything I miss. but he scaled some funnels that were essentially products that gun users love. And he ran a lot of traffic on Facebook. But if I'm correct, he went to Walmart. If I know the story correctly, he went to Walmart at first and literally bought all the, I think it was like Targets and gun oil were the first things he tested. And the big point, it's irrelevant, the niche or anything. The dude went to Walmart and he bought things off of the shelves. And then he went to his house and he sat down in front of his laptop and he wrote freaking sales letters for him. And he crafted offers around them. He crafted free plus shipping offers. And then he crafted upsell offers. And he started playing with these pieces. They're sitting on the shelves at Walmart. Is there a better place to buy them for higher ROI? Of course there is. That's not the point. The point is he just literally went in and he's like, okay, groups of people online are like nuts about this. And there's golf nuts and there's fishing, like there's knitting nuts. So like, I use the term nut lovingly. We're marketing nuts. And so he's like, okay, there's an obsessive purchasing audience who loves this kind of stuff. Let me just go to Walmart where they sell cheap stuff. What kind of stuff might those people buy? I don't even know if he had experience. And he's like, okay, well, I'll try these. I'll try some of these. And let me go see what I can create. And I don't know exactly how far he scaled it. I believe I know for a fact it's 7. I think maybe he made it to the 8 figures. That's the main point. And I think you might know more. You might be able to fill in a few details. But like the dude rearranged the resources that were around in his world. He went and got things from a place that sells stuff and he typed words on a page. And then he took people through ads from Facebook to that page that he created to sell stuff that he went and got somewhere else. It clicked, he scaled, boom, like magic happened. And ultimately it's that kind of resourcefulness that linked together with those skills, crafting an offer and writing the sales page and a whole bunch of testing. I'm obviously 60 seconds of maybe a year or more of work. It opened up an absolute world for the dude.
Well, what he did is he committed to testing a new funnel, is what they were called then. This was like at the beginning of the ClickFunnels thing, but he committed to testing a new one each week. And so every week he would put up a new offer. And so he started, you can't source all these products from China that fast. So essentially he just said, okay, but can I sell one? I can go to Walmart and buy it and lose money on it and ship it out. But if somebody wants it, I know, okay, this is worth me spending more time on. And so it's sort of this micro, it's like, what about Bob? Baby steps to the kitchen, baby steps to the curb. You just got to take those little. So sometimes it feels like such a big project that it just stops you before you even start versus being able to just get validation of the first piece. And then if you can validate that, then you can move just the baby steps to the next piece and so on and so forth. And he did. From those baby steps, he was able to, go up to 8 figures in sales in his stuff. And that's another skill set that, I can tell you this from my personal perspective, I've never wanted to have an 8-figure business. Because you end up with a bunch of people in a building that want to talk to you and and have W2s and HRs and all that kind of stuff. And I don't, so I've got businesses that I purposely make less sales on because I have made them run on autopilot without people.
Right.
I could sell more if I wanted to put people in the process, but I don't want that.
But then you're a manager.
That's right.
And then you have to deal with that. And it's
you hire a manager and then that manager costs money. So it reduces your profit margins. And then you're responsible for so many more people. And it's like heavy. It starts, to me personally, starts to get heavy. It's like, okay, this is not like, I can't just say I want to go to Hawaii for a month because people expect me to, I don't know, be in the office or something. And I don't want that.
No, there's definitely a curve. There's an arc to it, and at some point, it becomes it becomes a weight. And what we want to help people get to is that sweet spot that works for their lifestyle to maximize the time freedom they have in the future from putting in the minimal number of time units in the present. Right? It's front loaded, but once you get there, it opens up from there. And I think, to be honest, from my perspective, it's just more fun to play observer, to go find new ways to synthesize what's working in different areas, and to craft new offers for my same audience. It's so much easier that I would rather and that's what my wife and I do. That's what we're offer creators. We create lots of content and lots of value to build a list of people who enjoy us. But from there, it's what gets them on the list. Well, that's the offer. It's the lead magnet offer. Well, what happens after that? Well, that's the one-time offer. What happens after that? That's the upsell. I wrote a one-click upsell video sales letter 6 years ago, still running it today, still converts 35, 33, 38% of traffic buys this thing. And it's something we spent a few weeks to dial that in, and it just pays over and over and over and over and over. And that's what we're helping people get with today. At this point,
can I say one thing about that? So one of the ethos things about oil wells versus the other analogy that comes to mind as a gold mine, right, is that oil wants out of the ground. Yes. And gold wants to go to the bottom, to the bedrock. I like to watch this show called Gold Rush. And like scaling your business to 8 figures, where you've got to put 30 people in a room somewhere talking to each other and passing their TPS reports and doing all their stuff, that feels like a gold mine. Like at a gold mine, you've got guys on the front end loaders and guys in the wash plant and guys in the excavators. And it's like this, everybody's running around all the time, and the wash plant breaks. And so everybody's got to run this. Yep. Yeah. And so it's like, it takes a lot of people and a lot of fuel and all this stuff to run the gold mine, because that gold is trying to get away from you. Whereas an oil well, when you get a gusher, you cap it off and you put the pump on it, you hook it to the pipeline, and then you just leave it, And I found that that business that I alluded to earlier, where I started in discovered it in the bookstore, I'm not. So I want to be clear, I haven't discovered all this stuff because I'm perfect and it just came to me. I discovered it all because I screwed it all up, right? I kept making the mistakes. And so like this business was doing about 150 grand a month in sales. And I was putting, at that time, probably 50,000 a month in my bank account after expenses and refunds and taxes and everything.
Yep.
Every ads and all that, and there was just more and more clicks to be bought, and so I kept scaling it up. And what I figured out eventually, after doing all the mistakes, is that at a point of about 140 grand a month, it will run on autopilot without me ever touching it. I got one employee, a girl in Atlanta, who answers emails and gives refunds, and that's it. And I log in every morning to my AdWords account, to my Stripe account, and to my bank account, and I make sure all three did what they were supposed to do yesterday. That takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes max. Once every 3 or 4 years, something gets out of whack and I gotta spend a week fixing it, but that's it. Whereas when I scaled the business from 150 up to 250 grand, then I had problems with my merchant account.
Right.
And then I had to pause my ads. And then when I paused my ads because I couldn't take payments, and I started my ads back up, my ads didn't work as good anymore because they were rolling and were just going perfectly and had built all this momentum over 6 months or so. And I just stopped the locomotive and it had to start back up. And so I end up, my cost per sale goes way up and I'm not profitable. And, and so it was all this stuff just because I wanted to push the machine beyond where it wanted to run.
Broke the wash plant.
That's right. So what I found is that I would much rather run it at 120 to 140 grand a month and just put that 40 grand a month in the bank and do 2 hours of work a week, just monitoring it, and then build something else, versus it's not my only good idea, right? If it was my only good idea I ever had, then yeah, I'd probably keep working on it and trying to make it do more. But because it's not my only good idea, I can just set that thing on autopilot and then build out my next good idea and leave that alone, right? So thankfully now I haven't had to touch my ads for that since 2011. So that feels pretty good. You know, it's like you just let it run, right? And so it took me about a year and a half of breaking it to figure out, like, going through 3 merchant accounts and 2, like, shutting down 2 AdWords accounts, you know, like from doing stupid stuff. And like, cause your AdWords account, like, if they, you know, well, it's beyond the scope of all this, but suffice it to say, starting and stopping is not profitable.
No bueno. Yep.
Yeah. And so where you get these things really going is where you get this thing sort of just cruising on its own.
Yep.
Yeah, and humming, and you don't have to mess with it. And so that is one of the things I would say is move it up to where it runs well, and then move on and build another one.
Well, so it's, and the oil, I love the analogy of the oil, right? So there is pressure built up under the ground inside of this pocket of oil. There's pressure there, and Jed Clampett goes and shoots after the rabbit, and the bullet releases the pressure. So what I said earlier is that there is, you know, this trillions of dollars are exchanging hands each and every day in this massive economy. That is the thing that there's pressure in, okay? There is built up pressure within the economy. And what we do as wildcatters, as digital oil well builders, is we find ways to tap, right, to prick into that with an offer. And obviously there's pieces, the offers, the ad, the thing, the sales, all those little bits and pieces that we'll get into in greater depth. But the big picture is the important part. The pressure is there. The desire to buy a thing or a result or an outcome or status is already there within the audience, within the marketplace. And we go tap into that. And once we tap into that, it flows. Now, to get an oil well, so we got one oil well, we build the pump and we're running it, right? If you attempt to accelerate the rate at which you're getting the oil out beyond the natural pressure, you cause all kinds of problems for yourself, versus going and tapping another well. And this is the idea. I like to think of it as, so yeah, we're teaching digital oil wells. Once you're done, you'll be able to build a whole oil field. And then you'll be able to build a whole oil field on multiple continents. So my wife and I right now, we have several offers in totally different niches, right? And that is because I want to diversify. I want to make sure I've got levels of security. We started with one, we focused on one and another, and all of a sudden we got 20 oil wells pumping in this one brand. It's like, might make sense to crack off in another brand just in case things, and that is the game. And once you get into it, it's that realization that there's pent-up desire in every market. People want to buy things. They're hoping something really cool and exciting that makes them feel good, or something useful that solves a problem for them comes across their plate. They're ready to buy it right here and now. Yeah. That's the shift. That's what we're helping people. That's what we're helping you turn into, is someone who is the creator of those versus the consumer of those things.
Yeah. And I love the idea of, you know, it's an oil well, then it's an oil field, and then it's oil fields in completely different geographies, because I have that as well. Like, I've got stuff in the internet marketing space, just a few little things. I've got my test prep stuff. I've got my, you know, my little golf product, and a bunch of other little one-off things that I've thrown around. But, you know, there is something, like, people always ask me, and this is kind of a weird thing to say, but people ask me, they're like, how do you sort of live your life without, giving an F, right? Like there's a buddy of
Why
mine.
don't you care?
Right. There's a buddy of mine. He's like, man, he goes, I've never met anybody like you. And he's a guy that has an 8-figure internet marketing business, and he's a very well-known guy. And he's like, you're the only guy I know that, like, you have all this opportunity that you could cash in that you don't cash in. He's like, you don't try. He goes, you could build a personal brand and have an 8-figure business. He goes, everybody comes to you. You're the, like he was talking, he's like, you're the secret weapon of all these people who.
You're the guy behind the guy.
Yeah, you're making all these guys rich. And if anybody knew that, you could start a big coaching business or whatever, that kind of thing. And I was like, well, I don't need it. Like and I've gotten to the point, whether it's through age or laziness or whatever, that just because it's there doesn't mean I want it, and I think, but the reason that I have that I couldn't really explain to him is when you have your needs met in 3 different niches, like that gives you
security.
Yeah, 100%. Ultimate security.
It's securing that lifestyle freedom that has a cost, and like there's certain levels of costs that you and I live that we've just consciously decided we want to live a lifestyle that's that many dollars per month, and now we have that coming in from totally uncorrelated assets that run on different traffic sort. Like if Google, like, it's different traffic sources, it's different niches, it's different audiences, it's totally non-correlated stability. And again, the reason why we have both been able to build that, which is totally the reason why we're collabing on this in the first place, is because very few people get this like you do and I do. We've won. Like, we've literally won the game. Like, okay, what do I want to do? Like, roam around in my little RV, like build that's what we get to spend our time doing, because we have that sense of security that even if calamity hits on one platform, even if the world stops giving an F about this entire niche, I still have multiple other backups, right? 2 is 1, 1 is none type thing. Well, 3 is 2 and 2 is, yeah, exactly.
Well, and the cool part about that is that, if you ever do get interested in one of those type things, then you are able to, if you decide you want to cash in any of that equity that you have, you can do it on your own terms. And you I have people that are in the labs, what the labs is, like messaging me they're like, yeah, we would like to do this or this or this. And I get usually like 3 or 4 messages a day from this small little membership that I have of people that want to spend more money somehow. And I just don't offer those things, like they want us to run their ads or things like that. And we just choose. So I'm able to, if I decide, hey, I want to do something at some point, then I get to write the terms of it. And it's such a different positioning than the person who is cold messaging people on Facebook trying to get them to let them run their ads. It's like that, like that's driving the price down. Whereas when you're unreachable or whatever, then that drives the price up. So
100%. Well, at this point, I think we've got this covered for the ethos and this kind of beginning, really helping people build that unshakable mindset to move forward confidently and competently. Any last words at this point on this one, Kevin?
No, I guess the only thing I would say in closing is, I guess I do have last words. If I shouldn't say no, but is that the ultimate dream that I have is to have like a machine building machine. So to have my process be the process that, it's like where you're like, that's where you start building the fields and the whole thing. It's like you have the machine that builds the machines. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to codify here in my mind, is we're trying to give you the the loose framework for having a machine to build these machines that work for you, right? So that is, if I could have had the clarity 20 years ago about this that I have today, then, you know, I don't know what would have been different, but I would have had a lot less headaches along the way, and those kind of things. And so that is sort of my dream for this, is for this to be like a blueprint for a machine for you, the person who's watching this video, to be able to build these little oil wells, these little machines that, you know, like I have different ones that only make like $250 a month. So it's not like you have to have this six-figure thing, you know, like what does $250 a month mean to you? Like, well, okay, that's a lot of Fiji water. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's like there's something that $250 a month means, and I didn't work for it this month. It just got deposited into my bank account.
And that's a cell phone bill, home internet. I got one that we've been working on. It's been doing about $1,200, $1,300 a month, right? Nothing to shake a stick at. I got another one I just turned on that's doing about $3,000, $2,800 per month. And it's not that any one of those are life-changing, but when you add them all together, that becomes powerful, because A, it's diversified in a way that if anything happens to any one of them, I'm okay. Everything's good. I got enough of them and I now have the skill to build more. But when they all add up together, that's when the absolute magic happens.
That's right. So
cheers. All right. Well, we're going to call it for this video. Look forward to connecting with you on the next video. And thanks for joining us on this first vid here.